Welcome inside the EP Official Election Center. My name is Ryan Guest, and I'm here with a prediction for the 2028 Democratic presidential primary. The long and winding calendar begins in South Carolina, where a historically large number of candidates are vying for the nomination. It'll take close to 2,000 delegates to secure the nomination, delegates that will be awarded across all 50 U.S. states, the District of Columbia, and 6 territories. Here are the front runners, based on the latest national polling averages available as of February 5th, 2028, California Governor Gavin Newsom maintains the edge he has held since last September, garnering an average of 23% support. He leads the early favorite, Michigan's junior United States Senator Pete Buttigieg. A Cinderella story in the 2020 primaries, they called him Mayor Pete then. He's a senator now and holds about 20% of the national vote today. In third place is Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who has remained steady at around 15 to 16% over the last few months. In fourth, former Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer sits at about 10%. She's followed by Maryland Governor Wes Moore, who has been on a meteoric rise in recent weeks. He currently sits at 9% nationally, but is polling higher in the first primary state of South Carolina, where he hopes to pull off a surprising victory in just a few minutes. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is in 6th with about 6%, followed by a host of other candidates below 5% entering tonight's contest. We'll be back with the results right after the break. The first official votes of the 2028 presidential election cycle are set to come in out of South Carolina merely seconds from now, as Democrats take the first step in their effort to win back the White House. South Carolina was moved to the front of the calendar to better reflect the diversity of the Democratic electorate, a state where support among African Americans is absolutely critical. Tonight's race is expected to come down to the national favorite, California Governor Gavin Newsom, and the surging candidacy of Maryland Governor Wes Moore, and we've got the results right now. All right, we have a major projection right now. Election Pulse has called the race in South Carolina for Wes Moore. That's right, the Maryland governor, who has dominated headlines in recent weeks, was surging in state-level polling, and he has now secured a historic victory. Here are the final projected results. Moore wins with approximately 22% of the vote, garnering more than 180,000 votes out of nearly 820,000 cast statewide, setting a new Democratic primary turnout record here in the Palmetto State. Newsom finishes second with 17.1%, ensuring a strong delegate haul tonight. He's followed by Josh Shapiro in third at around 13%. Keep in mind, Democratic primary rules require a candidate to receive at least 15% of the statewide vote to qualify for statewide delegates. Pete Buttigieg finishes in a disappointing fourth, though his struggles with black voters in past elections made this result largely expected. Andy Beshear and Gretchen Whitmer round out the top 6. We'll have to wait and see how they perform at the congressional district level before determining whether they'll receive any delegates tonight. Further down the results, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly places a distant 7th with less than 5% of the vote, followed by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker in 8th and Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey in 9th. With the win, Moore is projected to receive 26 delegates out of the 55 awarded tonight. Newsom will take 19, Shapiro 6, and Buttigieg 3. Since only Moore and Newsom cleared the 15% statewide threshold, they are the only candidates eligible for statewide delegate allocation. Shapiro, Buttigieg, and Andy Beshear, who picks up 1 delegate tonight, each surpassed 15% in at least one congressional district, earning them a small share of delegates. Time will tell what impact this first contest has on the rest of the field.
This is CNN Breaking News.
The fallout of the South Carolina Democratic primary is in, and it's already reshaping the race. Wes Moore's victory has catapulted him onto the national stage, shaking up the dynamics of this already unpredictable primary. The Maryland governor's strong performance in South Carolina wasn't just a win, it was a statement. His ability to build a broad coalition, particularly among black voters, proved decisive, and now he's heading into the next contests with undeniable momentum. Just weeks ago, Moore was seen as an intriguing newcomer. Now he's a serious contender. But while Moore's campaign is celebrating, others are calling it quits. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, California Congressman Ro Khanna, and Colorado Governor Jared Polis have all suspended their campaigns. After disappointing finishes in South Carolina, none of them saw a realistic path forward. Pritzker, despite his deep pockets, never gained real traction. Khanna, a leading progressive voice, struggled to expand his base. And Polis, once seen as a potential disruptor, failed to carve out a lane in a crowded field. Their exits clear some space in the race, but the competition is only getting fiercer. With Moore surging, Newsom holding steady, and Shapiro quietly gaining ground, the fight for the nomination is far from settled. All eyes now turn to the next primaries, where the stakes just got even higher. It's another primary night in America. With South Carolina in the rear view, the Democratic calendar now moves west to Nevada and north to New Hampshire. New Hampshire will be the first to report results, with some polls closing at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and the rest at 8. Its famously independent electorate often bucks national trends. The early delegate leaders, Moore, Newsom, Shapiro, and Buttigieg, all see paths to victory, but someone needs to take control of this race. Moore's momentum is undeniable after his win in South Carolina, gaining several points in the national average over the last few days, but New Hampshire presents the first test as to whether his momentum translates to a less diverse electorate. Newsom, still searching for his first win, is under pressure to deliver, especially in his home state's neighbor to the east. Buttigieg, polling second nationally, has struggled in Nevada before. A weak finish, especially after a rough South Carolina showing, could put his campaign in serious trouble. We'll be back with the results right after the break. We're approaching the top of the hour here, 8 o'clock in New Hampshire, and we're just moments away from a key projection in the first primary of the night. Can Wes Moore carry his momentum forward? Will Gavin Newsom finally notch his first win, or will another candidate shake up the field? We're about to find out. Here we go. Election Pulse now projects that Pete Buttigieg has won the New Hampshire Democratic primary. After finishing fourth in South Carolina, the Michigan senator breaks through with his first primary victory in more familiar territory. Looking at the final results, Buttigieg narrowly edges out Gavin Newsom, who finishes second at 19.4%. Wes Moore takes third at 17.3%, firmly establishing himself within striking distance of the national leaders. All three will pick up delegates tonight, as the race remains incredibly tight heading into the next contests. Moving further down the results, Josh Shapiro lands in fourth place at 13.2%, just missing the 15% delegate threshold. Gretchen Whitmer finishes fifth at 10.3%, and Andy Beshear rounds out the top six at 7.1%. Strong performances, but not enough to claim statewide delegates. Looking at the lower tier finishers, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey places seventh at 6.0%. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly comes in at 3.4%, and the remaining candidates combine for just 1.6% of the votes. Now let's take a look at how the delegates shake out. Buttigieg leads the pack with 9 delegates, Newsom picks up 7, Moore takes 6, and Shapiro secures 2 from a strong enough district-level performance. That means Moore adds to his delegate lead, while Buttigieg scores a much-needed victory to stay in contention. Meanwhile, former Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer picks up her first delegate in these primaries. But this is just the first half of the night. The focus now moves west to Nevada, where a much different electorate could produce a much different result. Newsom has been the favorite there, but will he deliver? And can Buttigieg ride this momentum into another strong finish? We'll find out right after the break. All right, Election Pulse now projects that Gavin Newsom has won the Nevada Democratic primary. After placing second in South Carolina and again in New Hampshire, the California governor breaks through with his first primary victory, delivering a dominant performance in a state where his campaign had long expected him to do well. Take a look at these final projected results. Newsom wins decisively with 31.4% of the vote, finishing well ahead of Pete Buttigieg at 17.7% and Josh Shapiro at 14%. Shapiro falls just shy of the 15% delegate threshold, meaning only Newsom and Buttigieg will take a share of the statewide delegates tonight. Further down the leaderboard, one of the biggest surprises of the night, Wes Moore, fresh off his South Carolina victory, finishes at just 10.1%. His campaign hoped to expand its coalition in Nevada, but he'll leave the state empty-handed in the delegate race. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly follows at 8.7%, and Gretchen Whitmer finishes 6th at 7.5%. Rounding out the field, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear finishes at 6.0%, with drawn Colorado Governor Jared Polis at 1.3%, and all other candidates combine for 4.6%. With Nevada's notoriously slow count nearly complete, these results are locked in. Now here's how the delegate breakdown shakes out. Newsom secures 22 delegates, Buttigieg claims 9, and Shapiro picks up 5. This was a must-win for Newsom. With a strong second-place finish in New Hampshire and a big win here in Nevada, he's finally proving he can translate national polling strength into real votes. But the race is still wide open, and with more key contests ahead, anything can happen. All right, let's take a step back and look at where things stand after the first 3 contests. With results now in from South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Nevada, this race remains wide open, with 3 different winners and no clear frontrunner just yet. At the top of the delegate count is Gavin Newsom with 48 delegates thanks to his strong second-place finish in New Hampshire and a dominant victory in Nevada. Wes Moore follows with 32, buoyed by his South Carolina win, while Pete Buttigieg sits right behind at 31 after securing New Hampshire. Josh Shapiro, while still in the race, has 13 delegates after picking up small shares in multiple states. Further down, Gretchen Whitmer and Andy Beshear have 1 delegate each from district-level performances. With only 3% of total delegates awarded, this race is still in its early stages, and with 3 different candidates winning the first 3 states, there's no runaway leader.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Another shakeup in the Democratic primary. 2 more candidates are calling it quits. Arizona Senator Mark Kelly and Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey have officially suspended their campaigns, narrowing the field as the race heads toward its next critical phase. For Kelly, a former astronaut and swing state senator, the campaign never quite lifted off. Despite strong national name recognition, he struggled to carve out a distinct lane, and his distant finish in Nevada all but sealed his fate. Healey's road was even steeper. As a first-term governor with limited national exposure, she entered the race as a long shot and never found the breakout moment she needed. Her 6th-place finish in neighboring New Hampshire made it clear there was no viable path forward. All eyes turn to Michigan. The final test before Super Tuesday falls on Leap Day, February 29th, a make-or-break moment before nearly half of all delegates are awarded just over a week from now. For former Governor Gretchen Whitmer, this is a must-win. With just 1 delegate so far, her home state advantage is her best shot at staying in this race. But standing in her way, Michigan's junior U.S. Senator, Pete Buttigieg. For the rest of the field, Michigan is the last chance to gain momentum before the biggest day on the primary calendar. Newsom, Moore, and Buttigieg are locked in a tight battle, and a strong showing here could shift the race heading into Super Tuesday. We're just moments away from polls closing here in Michigan on this pivotal Leap Day primary. 3 contests down, one last battle before Super Tuesday. This is the moment for candidates to prove they can win in the industrial Midwest, where unions and working-class voters will have their say. Can Gretchen Whitmer defend her home turf and keep her campaign alive? Or does Pete Buttigieg deliver the final blow to her campaign in her own backyard? The wait is almost over. Michigan is about to speak. An election pulse can now make a projection in Michigan. Pete Buttigieg has won his home state's Democratic primary. The junior senator from Michigan delivers a decisive victory on familiar turf, notching his second primary win of the season and setting himself up as a major force heading into Super Tuesday. Take a look at these final projected results. Buttigieg takes the win with 25.0% of the votes, edging out former Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who finishes second at 21.8%. A loss on home soil is a devastating blow for Whitmer, who staked her campaign on a strong showing in Michigan. With Super Tuesday just days away, this could be the final nail in the coffin for her campaign. Meanwhile, Josh Shapiro surges into third place with 18.9%, a strong performance for the Pennsylvania governor. As a fellow Midwesterner, his appeal in Michigan was clear, allowing him to outpace both Gavin Newsom and Wes Moore for the first time in the race. Moore finishes fourth at 13.4%, just ahead of Newsom, who lands at 13.2%, a disappointing result for the national polling leader who had hoped for a stronger showing. Further down, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear rounds out the top 6 at 5.3%, missing the delegate threshold but continuing to register in key contests. Now here's how the delegate breakdown shakes out. Buttigieg claims the biggest haul with 42 delegates. Whitmer, despite the loss, secures 35, but it's a hollow victory for a campaign on the ropes. Shapiro picks up 26, his best delegate haul yet, further proving he's a growing force in the Midwest. Moore claims 8, holding steady, but losing ground, while Newsom collects just 5. And just like that, we have a new delegate leader. With his victory in Michigan, Pete Buttigieg overtakes Gavin Newsom at the top of the board, surging to 63 delegates. The California governor now finds himself trailing at 54, though with his home state's massive delegate haul still on the horizon. Meanwhile, Wes Moore, 40, Josh Shapiro, 39, and Gretchen Whitmer, 36, remain in the mix, as we have ourselves a 5-way fight heading into Super Tuesday. Now let's step back and look at the map. 4 states down, but the battle for the nomination is truly just beginning. Each major contender has staked a claim in different regions. Moore in the South, Buttigieg and Shapiro in the Midwest and Northeast, and Newsom in the West, but no one has taken full control. That could all change in just a few days. Super Tuesday looms large, where nearly half of all delegates will be awarded. From the South to the West Coast, from the Plains to New England, this is where frontrunners are made, or where campaigns come to an end. It's all on the line. Buckle up. Super Tuesday is next.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news here, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is ending his presidential campaign and throwing his support behind Josh Shapiro. After struggling to carve out a clear lane in a field packed with moderate governors, Beshear is calling it quits just days before Super Tuesday. Despite a popular tenure in deep red Kentucky, his campaign never gained enough traction to compete with the frontrunners, with Gretchen Whitmer, Wes Moore, and Josh Shapiro all vying for a similar coalition of pragmatic Democrats. Beshear simply couldn't break through. He He made it official at a rally in Raleigh, North Carolina, one of Super Tuesday's biggest battlegrounds. Standing alongside Shapiro, Beshear praised the Pennsylvania governor's ability to win tough elections and bridge divides. For Shapiro, this is a major boost. With Beshear's endorsement, he strengthens his appeal across the South and Midwest, two critical regions on Super Tuesday. And with another candidate out of the running, only 5 remain. Super Tuesday is next. It's Super Tuesday, the biggest, most consequential day of the Democratic primary. 15 states and the territory of American Samoa are voting, shaping the course of this race in just a few hours' time. It's the single largest delegate haul of the calendar, a night that will define the rest of the primary. California, Texas, and North Carolina are the big prizes. Together, these 3 states control a massive 784 delegates, nearly 20% of all available throughout the cycle. Pete Buttigieg enters as the delegate leader, sitting at 63 after his Michigan triumph. Gavin Newsom trails at 54, but with his home state of California on the board, tonight could be his moment to take control. Josh Shapiro, riding a last-second endorsement from Andy Beshear, is hoping to break through, while Wes Moore looks to prove his early momentum can carry him through the marathon of Super Tuesday. And for Gretchen Whitmer, this is survival mode. After losing her home state, she's searching for a foothold to keep her campaign alive. Take a look here as the latest national polling averages show no clear frontrunner. Gavin Newsom holds the top spot at 26%, but Pete Buttigieg isn't far behind at 21%. Josh Shapiro, coming off strong performances in Michigan and with fresh momentum from Andy Beshear's endorsement, now polls at 18%. Wes Moore sits at 15%, while Gretchen Whitmer rounds out the top 5 at 13%. Every candidate still standing has picked up support as others have dropped out. But what's striking, no one has taken control. The party is as divided as ever, and the question looming over Democrats today: does someone finally break away, or does this race stay locked in a multi-way battle all the way to the convention? This is the moment to prove who can win over a national coalition. 15 states, hundreds of delegates, and a party looking for direction. Super Tuesday is here, and it's about to get real. Here we go. Virginia and Vermont close first at 7, followed by North Carolina at 7:30. From there, the floodgates open. A wave of states will report results at 8 and 9 p.m. before the final polls close at 11 in California and American Samoa. Newsom will be watching that final window closely. His campaign is banking on a dominant night in his home state to catapult him back to the top of the board. The race is wide open, but not for long. Super Tuesday is underway, and the battle for delegates starts right now. An election pulse can now make a projection in Virginia. Josh Shapiro has won the Old Dominion. The Pennsylvania governor claims his first primary victory of the season, delivering a major win on the East Coast, and proving his Midwest strength translates further south. Take a look at the final results. Shapiro tops the field with 26.7% of the vote, pulling ahead of Wes Moore, who finishes second at 23.6% after a strong showing with black voters. Gavin Newsom lands in third at 19.5%, keeping himself in the mix, but still searching for a dominant win outside of Nevada. Further down, Pete Buttigieg finishes fourth at 16.9%, Whitmer follows with 10.2%, and the rest of the field combines for just over 3% of the votes. And now, the delegate breakdown. Shapiro takes the biggest haul with 34 delegates, Moore follows with 30, Newsom secures 21, and Buttigieg picks up 14. A big win for Shapiro, but there's no time to celebrate, because we have another projection. Take a look at this. Election Pulse has called the race in Vermont for Pete Buttigieg. The Michigan senator notches his third primary victory and his second in New England, reinforcing his strength among college-educated liberals and suburban voters in this part of the country. Here are the numbers. Buttigieg finishes first with 30.8%, narrowly edging out Newsom, who lands at 28.0%. Another strong showing, but not quite enough to secure the win. Gretchen Whitmer places third at 14.5%, her best performance outside of Michigan so far. After underperforming in the first few contests, this is a glimmer of hope for the former governor, but it may be too little, too late. Wes Moore finishes fourth at 13.7%. He was expected to perform better in the Northeast, but his campaign still hasn't found a foothold in whiter, rural states like Vermont. And what a night for Shapiro so far. First place in Virginia, but dead last here among the major candidates at just 9.2%, a reminder that his appeal still has limits in parts of the country. Here's how the delegates shake out. Buttigieg and Newsom split the lion's share, taking 7 delegates each, while Whitmer and Moore both grab 1. That's 2 contests down, and we're just getting started. The 7:30 closings are coming up. North Carolina is next. Stay with us. So the first results of the night are in. Josh Shapiro takes Virginia, securing his first primary victory and potentially setting the stage for a broader consolidation of the moderate wing behind his candidacy. Meanwhile, Pete Buttigieg notches his third win of the season in Vermont, and thereby holding on to his delegate lead, albeit more narrowly over Gavin Newsom, who now only trails Buttigieg by 2 delegates at 82 to 84 after finishing ahead of Buttigieg in Virginia and picking up an identical delegate total in Vermont. Meanwhile, Shapiro's win in Virginia propels him up to 73 delegates, ahead of Wes Moore for the first time this cycle, who sits at 71. Gretchen Whitmer, despite a stronger-than-expected performance in Vermont, remains further back at 37. And keep this in mind, this is just the beginning. Only 9% of delegates have been awarded, and there's still a long road ahead. But in such a tightly contested race, every delegate matters. Up next, North Carolina, a key battleground state with 134 delegates on the line and a diverse electorate that could shake up the standings once again. Who takes it? We'll find out after the break. Here we go. Election Pulse is ready to make a projection. Josh Shapiro has won the North Carolina Democratic primary, a massive win for the Pennsylvania governor in one of Super Tuesday's biggest battlegrounds, further cementing his rise as a major contender in this race. Let's break down the numbers. Shapiro leads the field with 28.6% of the vote, his message clearly resonating with suburban and moderate voters across the Tar Heel state. Gavin Newsom takes second at 23.1%, holding steady but still searching for a decisive breakthrough. Wes Moore finishes third at 20.9%, another strong showing among black voters, but once again just short of the top spot. Further down, Pete Buttigieg's struggles continue in the South, landing in fourth at 14.0%. Gretchen Whitmer rounds out the top 5 at 10.2%, managing to scrape up a few delegates, but unable to expand her appeal beyond her home region. The rest of the field barely registers as the race increasingly becomes a battle between the top contenders. Now take a look at the delegate breakdown. Shapiro walks away with the biggest prize, 41 delegates. Newsom takes 31, Moore secures 29, Buttigieg picks up 12, and then finally Whitmer nabs 3. That's back-to-back wins for Shapiro tonight, and his biggest yet. A clear sign that his momentum isn't just real, it's growing. But Super Tuesday is far from over, and with major delegate-rich states still to come, this race is nowhere near settled. More results ahead. Stay with us. As we take a look over Nashville, Tennessee, where polls are set to close at the top of the hour, let's check in on where things stand after the first wave of results. Josh Shapiro is the big winner so far tonight, securing victories in both Virginia and North Carolina, his first two primary wins of the cycle, and launching himself into the delegate lead with 114. Gavin Newsom sits just behind at 113, keeping this race razor thin. Wes Moore crosses into triple digits with 100 delegates, while Pete Buttigieg holds at 96 after a fourth-place finish in North Carolina. Gretchen Whitmer remains further back at 40, but this night is far from over. Polls in Alabama, Maine, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, and Tennessee are all closing at the top of the hour, bringing in another massive wave of results. And looming ahead, California and Texas. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the battle for the nomination is only getting more intense. We have some projections coming in right now. An election pulse can now project a landslide in Alabama. Wes Moore dominates in the Deep South. The Maryland governor delivers his most decisive win yet, capturing 36% of the vote and flexing his strength among black voters. This is the kind of statement victory his campaign needed, a powerful answer to any doubts about his staying power in this race. Meanwhile, Josh Shapiro surges into second place at 25.6%, another strong showing for the Pennsylvania governor in a state that has historically favored moderate candidates. Gavin Newsom lands in third at 16.9%, failing to gain traction in a state that was never expected to be a stronghold for him. Further down, Pete Buttigieg stumbles yet again in the South, finishing at just 7.1%, shut out of delegates in yet another Southern primary. Gretchen Whitmer takes fourth at 10.6%, another subpar performance that leaves her campaign searching for answers. In the all-important delegate haul, Moore takes 24 delegates, Shapiro follows with 16, and Newsom secures 10. Whitmer barely scrapes out 2, a small consolation on an otherwise tough night. A commanding win for Moore, proving he remains a major force in this race. But no time to dwell. We have another projection. Take a look at this. Election Pulse now projects that Gavin Newsom has won the Maine Democratic primary. The California governor finally gets on the board tonight, pulling in 28.4% of the votes in a state that aligns well with his brand of progressive politics. Newsom narrowly holds off Pete Buttigieg, who comes less than 2 points of a third win in New England. Wes Moore lands in third at 16.8%, showing some resilience despite the state's overwhelmingly white electorate. And look at this, Josh Shapiro clocks in at 14.3%, his best New England showing yet. Gretchen Whitmer, however, continues to struggle outside the Midwest, finishing last among major contenders at just over 10%. Another missed opportunity, another lost delegate battle, and speaking of delegates, Newsom secures 9 with the win, but Buttigieg still manages to add 8 to his growing total, while Moore grabs 4 and Shapiro picks up 3. A much-needed momentum boost for Newsom, but no time to celebrate because we've got a stunner in Massachusetts. Here we go. Wes Moore takes Massachusetts. This was far from a given for the Maryland governor, but he ekes out the victory, winning 26.3% of the vote in the most diverse state in the Northeast with a strong progressive base. But take a look at how tight this race was. Michigan Senator Pete Buttigieg finishes a razor-thin second at 25%, continuing his consistent strength in New England, where he has routinely hovered between 25 and 30% in these primary contests. Gavin Newsom rounds out the top 3 at 19.4%, a solid performance, but still short of the breakthrough he's looking for outside the West. Meanwhile, Josh Shapiro finishes 4th at 15.7%, not his worst showing, and just enough to ensure he secures a share of the Commonwealth's 92 delegates. Gretchen Whitmer, once again, lands at just over 10%, frustratingly short of the threshold. Now let's look at the all-important delegate count. Moore picks up 31, Buttigieg follows right behind with 30, Newsom secures 19, and Shapiro takes 12. Another massive moment for Moore, but can he keep the momentum rolling? Let's head to Oklahoma. And now, Election Pulse can project that Josh Shapiro has won the Oklahoma Democratic primary. The Pennsylvania governor continues his strong Super Tuesday performance, pulling off a victory in the Sooner state with 27.4% of the votes. While Oklahoma isn't a traditional battleground for Democrats, its mix of urban, suburban, and rural voters provides an interesting test of coalition building. And tonight, Shapiro passed with flying colors. Take a look at these final numbers. Shapiro claims first place, while Gavin Newsom lands in second at 26.0%, just a few points behind. Wes Moore registers yet another top three finish at 19.6%. Further down, Pete Buttigieg secures fourth place with 15.9%. Another solid finish for the Michigan senator, but once again he's struggling to win outside of the Northeast and Midwest. Gretchen Whitmer rounds out the top five at 9%. And here's how the delegates break down. Shapiro and Newsom both secure 12 delegates each, while Moore picks up 7 and Buttigieg claims 5. A key takeaway here, Shapiro continues to prove his appeal isn't just regional. He's now won primaries in the South, the Midwest, and the Plains, building the kind of broad coalition that could make him a real threat in the long haul. And finally, EP can also call the race in Tennessee for the governor. Shapiro takes his fourth state of the night. A huge win for the Pennsylvania governor, who continues his dominant Super Tuesday performance, carrying 29.0% of the vote in a key southern battleground. With wins now in Virginia, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, Shapiro is proving that his brand of pragmatic, Midwestern-style politics resonates across regions. Here's how the numbers shake out. Wes Moore finishes second at 24.8%, securing another strong showing in the South, but falling short of victory. Gavin Newsom takes third at 21.3%, keeping himself in the mix, but still lacking a defining win outside of Nevada and Maine. Further down, Pete Buttigieg places fourth with 12.1%, a respectable finish, but not enough to pick up major delegates. Gretchen Whitmer follows at 9.7%, once again missing the statewide delegate threshold. And now the delegate haul. Shapiro takes 24, Moore follows with 19, and Newsom picks up 15. Buttigieg secures 5 delegates from district-level performances, but the rest of the field is shut out. This is a live look inside the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C., where the tension is rising as results continue to pour in from across the country. So far tonight, 8 states have been called, 7 more to go, plus the caucuses ongoing in American Samoa. And take a look at this. Wes Moore has reclaimed the delegate lead for the first time since his South Carolina victory. He now sits at 185 delegates, narrowly ahead of Josh Shapiro at 181 and Gavin Newsom at 178. Pete Buttigieg holds at 144, still in the mix, while Gretchen Whitmer remains stuck at 42. A number that all but seals the fate of her campaign. What was once a bid bursting with potential now looks like it's reaching its end. At just 19% of delegates awarded, this race is still wide open, but the pressure is mounting. Every delegate, every contest matters. And up next, Arkansas, a southern battleground, 40 delegates up for grabs. Can Moore extend his lead? Can Shapiro or Newsom close the gap? Polls are closing in just minutes. Stay with us. An election pulse can now project that Josh Shapiro has won the Arkansas Democratic primary. The Pennsylvania governor captures his 5th victory of the night, continuing his Super Tuesday surge after coming in without a single win. His moderate appeal plays well in Arkansas, a state that has long favored centrist Democrats, and it's clear that Andy Beshear's endorsement is paying dividends in border states like this one. Let's take a look at the final results. Shapiro finishes first with 29.1% of the vote, delivering another strong performance in the South. Wes Moore places second at 26.3%, continuing to prove his strength with black voters and in the region overall. And Gretchen Whitmer surprises in third at 15.8%, her best performance of the night so far. Further down the list, Gavin Newsom lands in fourth at just 14.2%. Pete Buttigieg comes in at 10.3%, unable to gain traction here, and the rest of the field barely registers. Now let's break down the delegates. Shapiro takes 13 delegates, Moore follows with 11, and Whitmer picks up 5. Newsom walks away with just 2 delegates, while Buttigieg is shut out entirely. The 9 p.m. closings are next with a massive wave of states, including Texas and Minnesota. Buckle up, we're just getting started. Super Tuesday rolls on, and so far one candidate is making the most of the night. Josh Shapiro, who came into today without a single primary win, has now racked up 5 victories, vaulting himself into the top tier of this race. Take a look at the delegate count. Wes Moore holds on to a razor-thin lead at 196, with Shapiro right behind at 194, and Gavin Newsom lurking at 180. Pete Buttigieg remains at 144, still in striking distance, while Gretchen Whitmer raises her count to 47 after picking up 5 more delegates in Arkansas. But here's the real story. The biggest prizes of the night are still up for grabs. We've seen 529 delegates awarded so far, but Texas and California alone will account for 668 more. The trajectory of this race could look completely different in just a couple of hours. And for Newsom, this is where he's counting on a surge. He's been the favorite in both Texas and his home state of California. But will he deliver? 4 more states are closing their polls at the top of the hour here at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Minnesota, Colorado, Iowa, and Texas. This next wave could shake up the race yet again. The biggest night of the primary season is far from over. Stay with us. Election Pulse can now make a projection in Colorado. Gavin Newsom has won the Centennial State. After a string of near misses earlier in the night, the California governor's breakthrough comes in a state with a tendency to back the most progressive candidate in the race. Newsom takes the win with 30.2% of the vote, holding off Wes Moore, who lands in second at 23.3%, a solid result for the Maryland governor. Pete Buttigieg secures third place at 19.6%, also a strong showing in a state that favors the kind of suburban and college-educated voters who have powered his campaign so far. Further down, Josh Shapiro places fourth at 15.9%, which seems to be right around his floor across different regions this evening, while Gretchen Whitmer follows in a familiar 5th place at 8.3%. Now let's take a look at the delegate breakdown. Newsom grabs 28 delegates, Moore follows with 19, Buttigieg picks up 15, and Shapiro secures 10. This is a pivotal moment for Newsom, and with his home state of California still ahead. But first, take a look at this here, as Election Pulse can now project that Pete Buttigieg has won the Iowa Democratic primary. It's a homecoming of sorts for the Michigan senator who once shocked the political world with a win in Iowa back in 2020. Now 8 years later, he does it again, securing another victory in the Hawkeye State and proving his appeal still resonates with rural and Midwestern voters. Buttigieg finishes first with 29.5% of the votes, his first win of the night. Gretchen Whitmer surges into second place at 24.8%, delivering her best finish outside of Michigan. And Josh Shapiro rounds out the top 3 at 23.6%, continuing his strong performance in the Midwest. Further down, Gavin Newsom places fourth at 12.1%, barely scraping onto the delegate board in a state that was never expected to be his strongest. Wes Moore, meanwhile, struggles mightily here, finishing at just 7.2%, one of his weakest performances of the night. Now let's break down the delegates. Buttigieg takes 16, Whitmer follows closely with 12, Shapiro secures 11, and Newsom picks up just 1. It's a big, if not necessary, moment for Buttigieg, but as we've seen all night, no one is running away with this thing. And we have another projection. Election Pulse calls the Minnesota Democratic primary for Gavin Newsom. the California governor secures his third win of the night, carrying a state that often favors progressive candidates. This is a crucial pickup for Newsom, who has been searching for momentum outside the West Coast and finally finds it in the North Star State. But Gretchen Whitmer delivers another impressive showing, finishing second at 23.4%. That's two strong performances in a row for the former Michigan governor. Josh Shapiro rounds out the top three at 19.5%, continuing his steady accumulation of delegates across the board. Further down, Pete Buttigieg takes fourth at 17.0%, a respectable finish, but not enough to break into the top tier. And Wes Moore struggles again in a state with a smaller black electorate, landing at 11.6%. It's been a rough stretch for Moore, whose early delegate lead is slipping away as the race moves into less favorable territory. Now let's talk delegates. Newsom secures 25 delegates, Whitmer picks up 21, Shapiro takes 16, and Buttigieg adds 13 to his total. But now all eyes turn to Texas, 228 delegates, the biggest prize of the night so far. Who takes it? We're about to find out. And here we go. Election Pulse can now make a call in Texas. We project that Gavin Newsom has won the Democratic primary. The California governor delivers his biggest victory of the night, carrying the Lone Star State with a commanding 28.9% of the vote and securing the largest delegate prize of Super Tuesday so far. Let's take a look at these numbers. Newsom finishes first with over 1.1 million votes, a decisive win that helps him reclaim his footing in the delegate race. Josh Shapiro takes second at 24.1%, another strong showing as he continues to consolidate support across the South and Midwest. And Wes Moore rounds out the top three with 19.0%, proving once again that his coalition remains strong in diverse, high-population states. Further down, Pete Buttigieg lands in fourth at 13.7%, a weaker than hoped performance in such a delegate-rich state. Gretchen Whitmer follows at 11.4%, struggling to gain traction in a state far from her home base. And here's how the massive delegate haul shakes out. Newsom secures a whopping 89 delegates. Shapiro picks up 78, Moore takes 50, Buttigieg grabs 16, and Whitmer manages 11 to keep her campaign breathing. This is a huge moment for Newsom. Texas was the state he had been eyeing all night, a win he needed, and with it, he narrowly retakes the overall delegate lead. We're heading into the final stretch of the night. Still ahead, Utah, California, and American Samoa. Now here's how the race stands as we head into the final stretch of Super Tuesday. Gavin Newsom is back on top. After major wins in Texas, Minnesota, and Colorado, the California governor has retaken the delegate lead he entered the night with. He now stands at 323 delegates, with Josh Shapiro close behind at 309. Pete Buttigieg, once a co-frontrunner, has faded into the background. After a strong start in early states, he now finds himself at 204 delegates, more than 100 behind both Newsom and Shapiro. He remains competitive, but will need a major comeback to stay viable. And what about Wes Moore? He sits at 265 delegates, still in the mix, but facing a major challenge ahead. His southern strength carried him through early states, but as the map shifts west, his momentum is slowing. Unless he can pull off a surprise in California or Utah, his path forward becomes much more difficult. Now only 3 contests remain: Utah, California, and American Samoa. Newsom has long pulled ahead in both Utah and his home state of California, while Buttigieg is expected to finish second in both. For Moore, the numbers aren't promising. He's projected to finish dead last in both states, making this next hour a critical moment for his campaign. Utah is up next, 26 delegates at stake. We'll be back with the results right after the break. And now, Election Pulse can make a projection. In Utah, Gavin Newsom takes the Beehive State. A commanding victory for the California governor, his fifth of the night, as he solidifies his hold on the progressive wing of the party. Utah, the youngest and most highly educated electorate of any state Donald Trump carried back in 2024, was always expected to lean Newsom's way, and tonight it delivers him another crucial delegate boost. Take a look at these final results. Newsom wins decisively with 35.9% of the vote, extending his western stronghold after victories in Colorado and Minnesota. Pete Buttigieg secures second place at 19.4%, a much-needed result after fading in recent contests. And Josh Shapiro rounds out the top three at 16.3%, continuing his steady delegate accumulation but failing to seriously challenge Newsom in the West. Further down the leaderboard, no surprises, Gretchen Whitmer lands in fourth place with 11.2%, while Wes Moore struggles again, finishing in fifth at just 10.3%, his second lowest result of the night. And now the all-important delegate breakdown. Newsom takes the lion's share with 14 delegates, further extending his lead over Shapiro. Buttigieg collects 9 delegates, while Shapiro adds 7, keeping himself within striking distance heading into the final major contest of the evening. And now all eyes turn to the biggest prize of the night, California. With over 400 delegates to award, California will shape the final Super Tuesday tally. Polls are set to close in just under an hour. Don't go anywhere. We are fast approaching the biggest moment of the night. Gavin Newsom has extended his delegate lead after his win in Utah, but Super Tuesday's largest prize still lies ahead. California isn't just another contest, it's a Democratic powerhouse with an estimated 7 million votes expected in tonight's primary. A state this massive demands serious resources, and Newsom has spent heavily on TV ads, ground operations, and voter outreach. The question now, will it pay off? Polls have consistently shown Newsom leading, with Buttigieg in second, but margin matters. With 424 delegates at stake, California could reshape the entire race. By the end of the next hour, more than 40% of all delegates will have been awarded. For Josh Shapiro and Wes Moore, the challenge is damage control. Neither has polled competitively here, and Moore's limited resources have kept him off the airwaves, but strong district-level performances could still keep them in contention. And don't forget, American Samoa is also wrapping up. 4 years ago, Jason Palmer shocked the political world by defeating President Biden there. Could we see another surprise tonight? The biggest hour of Super Tuesday is here. California results are coming in soon. Stay with us. And here it is. Election Pulse can now project that Gavin Newsom has won the California Democratic primary. No surprise here, the home state governor cruises to victory in the biggest contest of the night, delivering a commanding performance in a race he was always favored to win. Take a look at these final projected results. Newsom secures a dominant 40.6% of the vote, far ahead of the field. Pete Buttigieg finishes second at 21.4%, a strong showing but nowhere close enough to challenge the California governor on his home turf. Josh Shapiro rounds out the top three at 12.9%, picking up some support but falling well short of a breakthrough. Further down, Gretchen Whitmer lands fourth at 11%, Wes Moore follows at just 9.8%, and the remaining candidates fail to make a significant impact. Tough night for Moore. Despite his national wins, his campaign simply lacked the resources to compete in a state of this scale. Now take a look at the delegate haul. Newsom racks up a massive 265 delegates, the biggest single state prize of the entire primary. Buttigieg claims 122, keeping himself afloat in the race. Shapiro secures 21, Whitmer adds 10, and finally Moore picks up just 6. With that, Newsom not only cements his status as the clear frontrunner, but also builds a delegate lead that will be difficult to overcome. But we're not done yet. Election Pulse can also project that Gavin Newsom has won the Democratic caucuses in American Samoa. A small contest, but another win on the board as the night comes to a close. And with that, Super Tuesday is in the books. The biggest night of the primary season has reshaped the race, but it's far from over. Approximately 42% of all delegates have now been awarded, and Gavin Newsom leads the field with 605 delegates, nearly double that of his next closest competitor. Josh Shapiro sits at 338, locked in a tight battle with Pete Buttigieg, who holds 335. Maryland Governor Wes Moore follows with 271, while former Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer remains in a distant fifth with 103. Take a look at the updated primary map. 19 states down, 31 to go. The leader, Gavin Newsom, has carried California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Texas, Minnesota, and the caucuses in American Samoa, capitalizing on his strength in progressive Western states. Josh Shapiro has secured wins across key border states, claiming victories in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. Pete Buttigieg's biggest win came in Michigan, but he's also reclaimed Iowa and secured victories in New England, carrying both Vermont and New Hampshire. Wes Moore, meanwhile, has added Massachusetts to his column, alongside two Deep South strongholds, South Carolina and Alabama. Next up, Hawaii, a Saturday primary that will keep the momentum rolling before we head into the next major primary night. 4 more states vote next Tuesday: Washington, Idaho, Mississippi, and a crucial battleground in Georgia. That does it for this first part of the Election Pulse prediction for the 2028 Democratic primary. Part 2 is already in the works and will be released on this channel as soon as it's ready, so make sure to subscribe down below. If you enjoyed this, leave a like so I know you want more, and drop a comment with your thoughts on where the race goes from here. A huge shout out to my channel members. Your support makes this content possible. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and check out more of my videos here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. EP out.